What's up guys, and it's like eating dessert first. We keep kind of previewing and spoiling all of the interesting releases from Toy Fair, but this one's pretty exciting. So this one comes to us from somewhere around Maryland, which is not necessarily north, not necessarily south, but somewhere on the East Coast. From our friend Corey. Corey spent $11 to send this to us so that we could get this review out to you early, so that we could tell you what we think about the discount Stryfe. Alright guys, so the Alpha Strike line is Hasbro's budget response to Zuru stealing a bunch of their market share, and what better blaster to pitch in a kind of let's bring it back down to a realistic price point than the Stryfe. So this is clearly a semi-auto flywheel style blaster, taking a lot of nods out of the Stryfe's playbook. It's somewhere between a Stryfe and a Desolator in my opinion, in that it has clearly some sort of built-in stock and sort of a funky foregrip up here. I like that the shell is symmetrical, not unlike a Desolator trying to be, but it accomplishes that by making the battery box down here. Comes with 20 darts, which is actually quite nice. That's more in line with the Alpha Strike's sort of overall theme and flavor of providing a lot of pieces in terms of value so that you can justify purchasing this over something like, say, a Zuru blaster, which comes with 30 pieces because they give you a lot of darts. Now, as much as I do laud Zuru for bringing the price point in the market down, Zuru's darts are still not quite up to snuff. And while Elite darts are certainly not that much better, they're at least the right length profile for industry standards. So Nerf dart's not amazing, but it's nice to get enough of them that you can load this blaster up more than a couple times. Now, comes with what appears to be a 10-round magazine. And I'm kind of sad because I really like the 12-round magazines, and it seems like 10 is the new cool thing to do over in Pawtucket. I think that the 12s are going to be phased out, and the 18s only showed up again in the Stampede, so it's probably going to be 6 clips or 10 as we move forward. But this is 20 bucks, which is what a Stryfe should cost and what a Stryfe used to cost back when they came out. Nowadays, if you want a Stryfe, and I think that the Stryfe is an overall superior blaster with a lot of different aftermarket accessories for it, I think you're set back $30 to $35 on Amazon.com, and that's about the cheapest way you can get your hands on a Stryfe. Sales pop up here and there, and I like to post about them on my community tab. If you're already subscribed and have hit that bell, you get those notifications as well. Usually whenever they show up at 20 bucks, I try and snap up a few for myself so that I can test new aftermarket products for you guys. But the Flyte CS-10 is an electronic blaster that hopefully can keep parity with its Stryfe-based predecessors. And in theory, this one has all the hallmarks of a good blaster. It's got a slightly larger magazine, it's got the standard semi-auto setup, it's got a built-in stock and a built-in foregrip. There's nothing more that we can do while talking about it though until we take it out of the package. Let's see what we got inside. So in the package itself, you're gonna get the blaster, you're gonna get 20 darts, you're gonna get this magazine, which is honestly a little funky. It's definitely not a... Oh no. Come on, Hasbro. Come on. I wanna be proud of you so bad. Okay, so super funky there. Let's talk about it. So this is very crunchy. Getting it in and out, not easy. It's not a smooth magwell, and that's because there's no lips here. It's just raw shell plastic. This used to be one of the things that Hasbro did so much better than other brands. They'd put covers here, they'd put lips here, they'd kind of make it easy to insert the magazine. This is really crunchy because the mag release is so shallow in here that we're having a very difficult time getting the lip of this past the mag release. Now I'm pretty confident that if we hit it really hard, it'll fully insert. Now, it doesn't want to, it really doesn't want to gravity drop, and that's again the stiffness of this release. There's actually a hook inside here on that mag release, which is locking up and into this. So just a little funky, a little different. This, for all intents and purposes, seems to be a pretty regular Nerf magazine. So no corner cutting here, but the overall kind of feel of the blaster, the overall size profile, again, I'm a pretty tall guy. This is a very tight magazine, or tight stock profile, but it's not terrible. I like that there's included tack rail up top if you wanted to put an optic up there. I don't like that there isn't any built-in optic. However, the stock, although being a little tight, is much, much better. And the fact that this isn't the skeletonized grip that shreds your hand like Swiss cheese is quite nice. I don't like that they kept some of that material here, but I understand that Hasbro wants to pretend that they can't produce these blasters at these price points anymore, and so this is where they put a lot of their mold release and a lot of their cost savings in it. So the overall ergo, kind of tight, but not the end of the world, and would certainly be great for anybody under 6 feet tall. I think that this would be a really cool CQB kind of semi-auto blaster. Interestingly enough, and maybe a little splash of hybridization, this has an in-strike front barrel attachment, which is really cool. We haven't seen this in a long time. They stopped putting these on a lot of elite blasters, so to have the ability to accessorize in the front and to have the ability to put some optics up top, I wish that we had a stock attachment point, but at that point we'd just be selling a strictly worse Stryfe. Like, overall, this is easily the best Alpha Strike blaster ergonomically in terms of its comfort. Is it perfect? No. Does it feel cheap? Absolutely, but Hasbro is going for cheap with this line. They want to save you money, and in that spirit, very few screws on this blaster. We've got one up here, one down here, kind of holding the shell together. I'm assuming a lot of these snap-on black plastic pieces are holding the rest of the shell together. And unfortunately, every modder's worst nightmare. I guarantee you this thing is solvent welded to the nines, which is going to make the modification guide an absolute gosh darned nightmare. That said, no screws for the battery tray, which is either a good thing or a bad thing, depending upon how you feel about it. It looks like you pull this tab down and push this down. Now, one thing that this has an advantage over, as opposed to blasters like the Stryfe, is that the Stryfe has this, in my opinion, it's always been kind of rough, kind of chunky battery tray that sits right above the action. This is seated symmetrically, so the blaster has a good clean profile all the way through it, and it's sort of just down here. Now, it's like choosing for you that you can only have one foregrip, and it has to be this kind of bulbous thing that you hang on to, but it should put a little bit of the weight forward. We've got some brand new Duracell batteries here that we just pulled out of the fridge. Comment down below, do you guys store your batteries in the fridge? A lot of people tell me that I'm weird for doing that, but I've always done it that way. I've always kept my batteries in the fridge. I think it makes them last longer. So we'll slap those home, and then this is all kind of chewy plastic, but it's not so bad to get it back in there. It almost folds up and in, and now we should be able to, plenty of locks still. Removed plastic from the places that needed plastic, but definitely left the plastic for the locks. So let's crack these open. So enough darts to load your magazine twice, which is quite nice. I wish that they'd given you the second magazine too, but I'm asking for a lot here in a budget line. I understand that. I just really like performance-based blasters. Now, let's put a few into our curtain here. Why aren't you revving? Ooh, it's a long pull. Normally you only have to press these a little bit to get them to rev, but you'll see that's about halfway, nothing happens, and you can even hear a click and nothing happens. You gotta really squeeze down on the Flyte, and then it's bad. The trigger pull is not good. So both triggers are very lackluster, just like the mag release really has to be cranked down on to pull this one out, or then really has to be pushed in to get it back in. This is a hard squeeze, and then this is a very stiff, very resisted sort of lackluster trigger pull. If you've ever played with a Stryfe, if you've ever played with realistically any semi-auto Nerf blaster, you know you have pretty consistent resistance from that torsion spring all the way through, and it feels good. Like, it feels like a well-designed product. But in addition to having a really narrow trigger here, and my fingers just barely fit, so yours should be fine. In addition to that, it's not a good feeling, this particular semi-auto, although the pusher seems to be engaging the magazine well. Let's take it outside, let's put it over the chronograph, let's show it to you next to a Stryfe, because I think that that's meaningful. All right guys, so we brought it outside, and I did just want to give you a side-by-side with the Stryfe. I assumed that it would be narrower, but it's not actually narrower, it's just more symmetrical. The Stryfe isn't that much bigger in terms of its overall size profile, and I guess they're both playing with more or less the same kind of flywheel cage geometry. The Flyte is actually thicker than the Stryfe, and it's certainly almost identical in terms of its profile. The only issue being that the grip is a little narrower. There's a built-in battery box here as opposed to this, which is sensible. And then back here, instead of having a stock attachment point and rails on the back, it's flat line into the kind of injection molded sort of stock back here. And that's honestly a little disappointing. I was hoping we get something a little narrower, a little lighter in profile, but all that tells me is that there's a lot of wasted space back here in terms of what we're doing with this real estate. Now, none of that matters. This is easily a flop if it doesn't perform at least as well as the Stryfe. Now, Stryfes tend to get about mid 60s to low 70s in terms of their stock performance with brand new batteries and darts. So we've got our ballistic chronograph out here. Let's see how it does when we squeeze the rev trigger hard enough. 74, 76, and our trigger got stuck in the back. Error. 77, 79, 77, 74, duplicate 74, 79, 72, 73, and I'm impressed. That's a little bit higher than your standard elite style performance, but honestly, it looked like it was mid to upper 70s, which is seriously, seriously cool. I wish that the ergo, like everything in this area, this like inch box here, is the flaws that I have with the blaster. Everything else is very forgivable and honestly not that bad. Let's put a few down range, except we can't just, gotta really drive that home. Both the point and the magazine itself. Now this is sort of funny, just like when your magazine costs more than your entire blaster. And the rev up time takes a long while because you have to squeeze this so much harder. But put a few down range. That's partially this magazine. And the ranges that are clearing 30 feet are going about 45 flat. That means that angled will probably be able to get about 50, 55. Well, that one went 60. That's not bad at all. So overall, I think that the Flyte gets a thumbs up. This one was found at Walmart, again, for 20 United States dollars. I'm sure they'll appear on Amazon really, really soon. My one cautionary tale, though, is up to and including 2 years ago, the Nerf Stryfe cost the same amount as this blaster. The Nerf Stryfe is a superior product in every way, in terms of its overall ergonomics and comfort, in terms of the options available to it, how well it takes different magazines, how easy the control systems are, and the overall kind of like features that the aftermarket has available for it. So if you're going to buy a Flyte, buy it because you kind of like the gimmick, buy it because you really like the old school in-strike black and yellow, or maybe you're just a rambling wreck like me, but don't buy it because you think that this is a fantastic semi-auto electric primary. Like, the Stryfe is still better, and I think well worth paying $10 for, in addition to the $20 that it should cost. If you want to spend $20 on a Flyte and you don't like the idea of spending $20 on a Stryfe, or an extra $10 on a Stryfe, find yourself a Desolator. The Desolator from the Doomlands 2169 line is actually, I think, to date, one of the best integrated stock semi-auto flywheel blasters, period. I really like the Nerf Cam ECS-12. It's got a very crossbow-esque shell. Like, there have been a lot of different iterations of the same technology over the last 4 or 5 years, all of which are better than the Flyte. So why would you buy this unless it's the only thing you can get your hands on? That's just my take on it. Let me know in the comment section down below. You could look at it... Jinx, what's going on? You could look at it one of two ways. You could look at it as, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that they're elevating the Alpha Strike line from just complete waste plastic into something that's clearly competitive. It's hitting mid to high 70s. Like, this is a good blaster that you could take to a stock class war, and hopefully it has modification potential inside. So you could look at it as, wow, it's really great that they're making the Alpha Strike line better. Or you could look at it as, wow, it really stinks that this is the entry level to flywheels that we get right now, because the control system just demonstrates a real lack of quality that I would expect from the #1 blaster brand in the world. That said, it's not bad, and if you want to see me take it apart completely, which will be tricky due to all of the solvent weld, I would love to do that for you live on one of my platforms. But in order to make that happen, I'm going to need you guys to like this video. Like, I hate asking for it. I hate the YouTube pandering that goes on at the end, but I have a Patreon that lets me stay completely independent and free of corporate bias. It would mean a ton to me if you would support me on Patreon, and I'll send you a free patch every month. March's is going to be pretty cool, and February's is honestly pretty awesome right now. But just liking this video, just leaving me a kind comment, keeps my wish fire burning and lets me keep making early reviews of stuff like this for you. Again, huge shout out to Corey Zepp. Thanks for making this video possible. And thanks to you, dear viewer. Much love. Nerf on Drac out.